Hello and welcome to the YouTube podcast series of Dinis, Guarda and citiesabc. I'm Hilton Supra, the Vice Chairman of Student Group, and I'm pleased to conduct this interview today with Salas of NordLayer, where we interview people who are changing the world, people that are inspiring us and the world with their achievements and creativity, acumen, and the use of technology. In previous interviews, Dinis, Guarda and I have interviewed nearly 300 amazing people and achieved more than 10 million views. This interview series is in partnership with our platforms Open Business Council, citiesabc, and fashionabc.org. All four are our fourth industrial revolution platforms, which employ the use of truth and trust through blockchain and the deployment of data analytics, AI, and machine learning. I'd like to introduce you today to Salas, who's an engineering manager at NordLayer, Cybersecurity at Metaverse. Carlos is a software engineer and experience working as an architect with AWS cloud specialist for more than 12 years, and also Unix Administration, software development, database administration, cloud architecture, etc. He joined the digital security and privacy solutions of NordLayer just in 2021 and is their engineering manager, supervising and coordinating the company's efforts towards updating and deploying their privacy and security solutions. He has a master's degree in Informatics from the University of Vilnius. Salas is always innovating and looking for better ways to grow both professionally and personally. Now, the citiesabc platform is a virtual utopian city AR VR marketplace. It's an immersive, accessible digital ecosystem that offers ESG metaverse-driven experiences, solutions, and rewards for cities, their citizens, institutions, creators, brands, retail, entertainment industry, businesses, and the public in the virtual world. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Web3, which is what effectively the metaverse is all about. So, Carlos, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Now, you're sitting today in Vilnius, Lithuania, but I understand you're from Mexico.
Yeah, I'm originally from Mexico, from a city in northern Mexico called Monterrey.
Brilliant. And so what made you move and be educated in Lithuania when you were based in Monterrey, in Mexico?
Well, yeah, I was studying my bachelor there in Monterrey, but then I started having some opportunities to start working all around the globe. First, Texas, California, Puerto Rico. Then I jumped into Europe. Starting from Spain and Barcelona, a little bit in Paris, Munich, and then going to the east, I ended up in Estonia. And I was working there for a little bit, and one of these summers, I decided, well, maybe I should start exploring more to the south, more to the Baltics. And I ended up in Vilnius, and I fell in love with the city. It's actually a very cosmopolitan city, very nice city. And one thing came to the other, and then at the end of the day, I applied for Vilnius University master program, and well, after that, well, I got this position. I first started here as a research and development engineer. We were working on new technologies, new implementations of already existing ones to try to make interconnectivity faster and stronger. And well, starting from there, I started climbing up and finally got to be an engineering manager.
Which is fantastic. But I looked at your CV, and you've worked in many countries. But before you left Mexico, just give me a little, give the audience and us a little idea of Carlos, the young boy, and his first interest in technology. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was born in 1989, so by the time I was like 5 or 6 years old, middle of the 90s. I mean, probably you might remind that at that moment, computers were not like so widespread like this right now. I mean, my family had a single computer for the whole family. And I was always very curious about not only the computer, but like every electronics that I could get my hands on. I was the type of kid that will start disassembling the VHS player And yeah, of course, I was grounded all the time because of those things. So I decided, like, instead of like trying to disassemble stuff, I will start trying to disassemble software. Because it was easier. If I messed something up, I could just delete it and start over again. And the blender, my mom's blender, is not going to be able to be deleted and but again, you know. So so that's when I started going into informatics, so and
Yes.
IT. And well, yeah, that's where my story started.
Brilliant. So did you obviously study some form of programming as a child, or just did you fall into that by accident?
Well, I was a very avid gamer also back in the day. So I decided, well, if they can, I can too. So I started buying some programming books. I remember I had those, what is called the Java Bible. It's like super huge Java programming book.
Yes.
And I started from there. My first like games were text-based, written in Bash script in Windows. And then, well, Bash script, you can interact with the whole OS infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up messing up the computer a few times. So that's when I also started to get to know some like basics of malware. So that was a shift from, yeah, let's do a video game, to, well, there are viruses out there. How do they work? So that's how I also ended up being in cybersecurity too, since the beginning.
Yeah. So looking at it from sort of a white hat perspective, being the victim rather than the
yeah, exactly.
the producer.
And also, yeah, sometimes I remember in 2003, yeah, it was 2003, when the blaster worm virus from Windows was very prevalent. I got infected. My computer was infected, but it was me that infected it, because I wanted to see how it worked, why it was being able to be infected. So yeah, I was that kind of kid.
Yes, you have a very curious mind. You always
Yeah.
want to understand the meaning of everything. Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. Which was quite interesting, because when you moved, you went to school and you went to university in Monterey, as you said, and then you moved to Europe. And I noticed that you were involved as an Android engineer in mobility and space. I think that was in Spain. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I was working for logistic companies, mainly companies that wanted to implement GPS tracking and statistical analysis on how and where those shipments are going to get from one point A to point B, and controlling like the whole, for example, factory backyard. You need specific loading and unloading ports, and you need to know exactly where and how those places are going to get in order to assemble something. So me and a couple of my friends decided, like, well, if, for example, some companies based in California or in China can do it with GPS, super bulky GPS equipment, we can do it with Android-based equipment. So we created a whole infrastructure, a whole, whole network of Android-based GPS devices that could even be used like in low orbit. It could be used in very specific locations, like in the middle of the jungle or stuff like that. But by connecting those GPS communication devices that already existed through some specific cables that we created to Android-based interfaces. So it was a very interesting experience there. That's also when I started in research and development.
That's brilliant. And obviously those type of technologies and devices that you were developing there, are they being deployed now? Yeah,
they're still being deployed. They're still being used, for example, in some oil rigs in the middle of the Atlantic right now. So yeah, it's a very good experience, and I'm very proud of that. What we made there.
Mm-hmm. And how much of that has been used by, in other environments to do with remote locations to basically help people?
Well, we have some of those devices deployed to, for example, some jungles in the middle of southern Mexico or El Salvador, some of them in Honduras too, and in Brazil, to help people to connect to the internet where there's no access to internet and there's not plans of actually implementing the internet in those zones. So we were also helping people to get connected directly into the internet through satellite communications.
Wow. So you were a precursor to Elon Musk?
I would like to think like that.
Of course, you can congratulate yourself for that. No, that's well done. And then doing that, what made you come to NordLayer?
Well, as I mentioned, I was really interested always in cybersecurity. I was also very interested in research and development. So when someone came over and say, hey, you know what, we need someone to keep creating new protocols, to keep creating new algorithms, new ways of interconnecting people, which there were things that I was already doing. And not only that, but to give me a platform where I can do this for millions and millions of people. Well, I was sure, sign me in.
Brilliant. So what is the mission of NordLayer?
Mainly is to help people to interconnect in a secure way and a fast way. So for example, if you have a company and you want to interconnect all your branches, all your stores, if you are a retailer, for example, you can do it practically by a click. It's just a plug and play type of solution. So that's actually quite great because sadly, I mean, also by experience, I know that some of the more corporate focused companies can be a little bit too rough on the practically everyone that wants to buy their products. Why? Well, because they have a huge logo behind them that says, we are this company. If you want this, it's because you want it, and that's it. We are not going to really help you on that. This is the product, implement it yourself. So you need to have a very specialized people on your company that are most probably certified by this company that is selling you the product in order to use their product. Yes. So that's something that I was always not very happy about with most companies. And when they start telling me about NordLayer, well, whoa, that's great. I mean, anyone can just come and say, hey, give me a license for your product. You install some apps in your devices, and that's it. You're already interconnected.
So what you're saying is what NordLayer's mission is, that basically is empowering the user to be responsible for their own cybersecurity with the technology that you have.
But also by having us behind them. Just, hey, okay, you already helped me to be empowered to have my cybersecurity on my own hands. But I still have this issue, or maybe how can I do this or that? We'll have very good, very experienced support team that is always helping our clients too. So that's also very good for our clients, for our users. And it's also something that if you go to a bigger company, that's those corporate ones, they will, yeah, sure, I'm going to help you, but just sign this contract and you're going to pay me tens of thousands of euros every year if you use it or not. So yeah, it's also not very nice on that side.
No, I understand. So where is NordLayer based? Tell us a little bit about its base and all its offices worldwide.
Well, we have offices all around the globe. We have offices in Virgin Islands, in Panama, here in Vilnius. There's also some offices in Netherlands, Germany, and yeah, we're expanding. We're rapidly expanding. Not only NordLayer, but also the whole Nord Security umbrella with all those products that we managed. Every product is based used for cybersecurity. Yeah. There's NordPass that is for password management. There's NordLocker for just data protection. And NordLayer that is a B2B, business to business type of interconnectivity and so on. So
this is interesting. So obviously your mission is really to empower users to actually as part of their interaction with the world and digital world, to actually have the comfort that they are being secured in the cyberspace. But what's the ultimate objective of NordLayer?
To interconnect people, to help them to interconnect in a secure way and a fast way and an easy way, to empower them to do what they believe they can't, because they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the people, they don't have the resources. But it's actually easier than it sounds. But especially when you are using this type of technology, where you type of plug and play, just install, and everything will be working as intended.
Well, at the end of the day, everybody's using mobile devices, and as you multiply the interconnectivity of people, you raise higher probabilities of cyber breaches or cyber phishing or whatever, which really does damage and is a big cost to individuals and economies going forward. The question I wanted to ask you is, with the peer-to-peer nature of technology today, where there's no centralized place, people are communicating and transacting directly with each other. Is the NordLayer technology specifically designed for peer-to-peer, or is it quite centralized?
No, it's actually quite like peer-to-peer, in the sense that, for example, you can have your servers or whatever you want in AWS. You can also have some type of infrastructure in Azure. You can also have some local infrastructure in your headquarters and some remote workers all around the world. By using NordLayer, it's like if everyone was in the same local area network, the same LAN, by the use of software-defined wide area network. So this is also one of the main goals of NordLayer, as I mentioned, to interconnect. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can also be connecting into your office, like if you were exactly there. And that also helps, as you mentioned, like everything is interconnected. There is not such centralized control anymore. So what happens if you have NordLayer? Well, you have a segmentation. You segment your network. So it's connected into the internet, into the main internet, but at the same time, micro-segmented. So there's only very specific people that are going to be accessing certain resources that you might want to have only for, I don't know, HR or developers or finances.
Well, as the individual starts interacting with their network or their organization, they are producers of data and they are the recipients of data. Mm-hmm. How does the NordLayer structure make sure that data communication is unique to the people that are using it?
By network segmentation. There is not going to be by the use of private gateways. You can get a private gateway from us with a specific IP that only you are going to be able to use, specific device, specific hardware that you are going to be able to use. So that way, there is no way that any other user is going to be accessing your connections. It's only between the people that you already gave access to it. And that's it. You can create teams. You can add people to those teams, and only them are going to be able to go through that private gateway to any resource that you want to connect.
I see. So if I'm now connecting to other services outside the network, like Google or other platforms, and they don't have that the NordLayer technology, I've got it all on my device. How am I protected if I'm just effectively the one end of a communication channel?
Well, if you have all your data, for example, on your mobile phone, and yes, you are going to I don't know, transmit that information into your servers, it's going to go through the private gateway and directly to your servers. If it's going to go into, let's say, Google Drive, you want to use Google Drive because some business reason or something, or personal choice, then all your information is going to travel encrypted from point to point, first from your device into the private gateway. From the private gateway is going to access a private DNS. Your DNS requests are not going to go anywhere. And then after that, it's going to go out into Google. And the connection between the private gateway and Google is going to be also protected, because the TLS certificates are going to create a secure connection between your device and Google, between the whatever connection you're going to have, either open internet or your private gateway.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because you mentioned something that you talked about, encryption. Okay, encryption is basically it makes things confidential. Can you talk a little bit about that confidentiality? Yeah,
we use military-grade encryption, 256 bits encryption, practically as business standards. As the machines that we have right now, before quantum computers come, practically you could say that it's unpractical. You can actually unencrypt this, crack this by using of brute force. Because if you do like a research on that, you will see that you will take few billions of years to unencrypt this type of connections. And like put it into perspective, the universe is younger than the time you will take to unencrypt this type of connection. So it's a very interesting simile that you can draw on this.
And in terms of the encryption process, does that slow down the communication between two people? Is there latency?
It's always going to be latency when you need to encrypt and unencrypt. But for example, we are using some newer technologies, newer protocols that reduce this latency to almost non-existence. For example, we have a new protocol called NordLayers that NordVPN is already using, but we got it and modified it so it can be also used by NordLayer users. And this is based on WireGuard. WireGuard is one of the newest communication protocols. And for example, if you go and look for the code base, it's very small and it's very compact, which actually also makes it very fast how it works. So yeah, the speeds on that side are very, very fast compared to other more standard protocols, for example, OpenVPN or iKey version 2 and so on. There's of course always pros and cons. OpenVPN normally it's more compatible with older devices, and WireGuard it's like a newcomer. Most of the newer devices are already compatible with that, but yeah, it's depending on the vendor, depending on what equipment you have. Mm-hmm. But every device can access to this.
This is very interesting. If I'm an individual and I want to have a cybersecurity package on my personal communication devices, can I be a client of NordLayer, or do I have to be part of a corporate, or not more of a corporate structure?
No, you can have a NordLayer. For example, if you have any type of business, you can have a NordLayer. No matter if it's a huge corporate giant, or if you have a retail store with 3 or 4 branches, it's ideal because it's highly scalable, I will say. So it doesn't matter if you have 1 store or you have 20,000 stores around the globe. Mm-hmm. You can scale as much as you want.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to protect people. Can you give me some examples of achievements of NordLayer in terms of major incidents that have protected people. I know you talked about earlier when when you were trying to break things and you got in, you found Trojans and things like that, and you got infected yourself. Give me some examples of what you've managed to do and help people.
Yeah, well, I can't give exact examples because, I mean, of course, it's client information and it's not right to disclose.
Yeah.
But I could give some examples of how can you use NordLayer to prevent major attacks that have been happening in other type of companies. So, for example, I remember last year there was a ransomware attack on Texas pipeline. So a lot of Texas gas stations were out of gas. A lot of companies were out of LP gas and so on. So what happens here is that a single computer of a single contractor was infected with ransomware, and the ransomware was able to start escalating into a whole infrastructure. So, for example, if they were using NordLayer, by installing NordLayer into, for example, contractors, you can create a specific private gateway called contractors. And those are going to be able to only access very specific, very small segmented parts of the network. So if one of them gets attacked by ransomware, you might be able to fend off this attack because only very small segments of the network are going to be affected. So in this case, then your backups will be probably free of ransomware because they are going to be on another segment, and your production infrastructure is going to also be protected because they're going to be on another segment, and so on. So that will also help a lot in those type of cases. And in case, for example, of someone getting into your network, it's the same situation, because if your network is segmented, they're going to be able to access a very minimal part of your network, of your data, and so on. So they might, for example, be able to get into the database, but not into the I don't know, root keys that will be used to unencrypt this database. So it wouldn't affect that much.
I understand.
You can minimize risks by a whole lot.
It's very interesting because you started to talk about databases. As we move into new cutting-edge technologies, one of these is obviously machine learning and artificial intelligence, which is reliant on large pools of data or silos of data, etc. And the agents who are going out there to get the data, the appropriate data based on the algorithms that have been produced, they need to go and get that data very quickly and securely. How does NordLayer protect that whole, particularly if you work on I'm using something quite technical here, is that when the data is in a data lake rather than sitting in SQL server?
Well, first and foremost, you can, for example, if you have a farm where all this data lake is stored, let's say, and big vendor, Azure, AWS, you can completely shut out the whole infrastructure that you have in the cloud and give it single access to a very specific IP. So in this case, you can use the private IP that we provide with a private gateway in order to only be able to allow this specific IP. So a specific device, in this case, I don't know, the training algorithm are going to be the only ones that are going to be able to access this data. And that's it. Not even developers, not even admins, only this specific machine that has the training algorithm there. So it completely shut out the whole infrastructure.
This is very, very interesting. It's really leading edge. I'm very impressed by this. In terms of the cutting edge technologies moving, we talk about fourth industrial revolution technologies, which is artificial intelligence, it's machine learning, it's Internet of Things, it's blockchain. Okay. That in itself, as people go, oh my God, it's very, very complicated. But what is the real utility of what we're moving towards Web3? How would you define Web3 for our audience?
Well, I will define Web3 as practically the next evolution of the internet. If we are going back to historical analysis, ARPANET was only like a single, let's say, a toy between universities, and it suddenly evolved into a more commercial success. That was, I would say, that was the first evolution of the internet. And then we started implementing new smart devices, which are now all interconnected all around the world. I will say that's the next evolution. And then now we are going to have Web3, which is the third evolution, we'll say. And it's practically another universe inside of our existing one. But this is a cybernetic universe where cybernetic currencies are going to exist with cybernetic cities. Cybernetic, even pubs and clubs are going to also be there. For example, a very good example is the Facebook Metaverse, where you can connect, you can go into even classes, university classes there. You can get courses, you can listen to music. There are like bands playing live on the Metaverse, and you pay with your cryptocurrency that is already also in the Metaverse. So I will say it's a newer evolution of the internet.
An evolution or a revolution, which would it be?
I will say revolution, because an evolution is slow and revolution is immediate. And we can see that, for example, countries like El Salvador, Bitcoin is already legal currency. You can use it to buy some chips in the supermarket. Mm-hmm. And Japan is also pointing into that. I mean, they already proposed that in 2023, they will start pushing new legislation for that. So they will start implementing this type of thing like NFTs, for example, into like the daily based stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is very interesting because it'd be nice to be able to, just for the audience, you've used a lot of terminology. Mm. We have, and we'd like to sort of break it down into what does it really, really mean? We're moving into, when we say Web3, which is the evolution of the internet, which is what people now call the Metaverse, which is basically a complete digital twin of the real world or its unique world. Is that a correct way of describing it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And as you move into that space, everything is digital. The threats and security threats with this nascent technology become ever increasing. Do you see that NordLayers' objective is really to be that layer of cybersecurity, particularly in Web3 environment?
Yeah, definitely. It can be used also for being protective with Web3. Yeah. For example, again, coming back into encryption and into some other features that NordLayer has, thread block, that will block every single web page that is trying to phish you into send bitcoins or something. And it's very convenient because, for example, if you are trying to log into a decentralized application of Web3, you need to connect your wallet into it, your digital wallet. And if you are not careful, you might connect your wallet into a malicious website, and they will just steal all your Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, NFT, and so on. So you need to make sure that you're connecting into a correct website and not, endpoint in this case, and not into a web page that is tailored in order for you to fool you and steal your money. So in this case, we can serve also as a barrier for those type of attacks, phishing attacks that actually are quite prevalent now in Web3.
Absolutely. I mean, those types of phishing threats where, as companies rush to be the first product in the market, I mean, there's holes and vulnerabilities that they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
There's a higher chances of this data compromise by bad actors having access to your data and then using that data to pretend to be you, or getting you to give them information that means they can actually steal something from you.
Yeah, exactly. And I have always thought that one of the main threats for like talking about cybersecurity is human error. Could be a misclick somewhere. You read something wrong. You left some patent server that is not patched, or you didn't upgrade your OS. And yeah, those type of things are always a risk for the main users. And for example, by using technologies like NordLayer, that we take most of that work from the users, then it's easier for them to be able to focus on, well, making money in the Web3, in the Metaverse, instead of trying to check if they are connected correctly, if the web is correct, and so on. So it also takes a load from companies to have something like the as a service.
So it's taking the load, which is what you say you're doing, but it also relies a bit on education in terms of the next generation of viruses, the endpoint protection and solutions that you have. And we need, and particularly when we're moving into what I call the metaverse, the digital space, where you need the combination of the human and their instinct, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, to come together intuitively to protect the individual. What are you doing in that area in terms of education?
We actually have a blog page where we are always trying to educate people, like what's the next thing, what could happen if you do this or you don't do this. And most of the time it's not only focused like on NordLayer, but in cybersecurity in general, to say like, you know what, this is happening right now, this is the new technology, these are the risks inherent to this new technology. And well, yeah, NordLayer could help you with these things. But the main thing here is to educate the users, because yeah, as I said before, human error is still a big factor, and it's going to be a big factor probably until humans go extinct. So absolutely, it's going to always be there.
But one of the challenges are, I'm not, I mean, okay, I understand technology and I use technology, and you are a technologist in R&D, and even I make mistakes, even you make mistakes.
Definitely.
I mean, particularly, and I think it's imperative and important in terms of people designing product with that user interface and that user experience is such that it minimizes error and maximizes the utility of the service. So that's part of what you say, education, but also your at NordLayer, you've got all these different products. But what are you doing in terms of the UI UX to really make it easy to use?
Well, we have a full team that is completely focused on design and UI UX, that is always looking for the newest ways of making our users to, as we mentioned, not click to the wrong places, to be completely transparent on what they are doing, how they are doing things, and always improving on what can we do in order to make the transition between having no or a different type of technologies to protect yourself into NordLayer. By, as I mentioned in the beginning, trying to make it as much as plug and play as possible. You just install, click connect, and you are already connected into your devices all around the world without need to do anything. And that's actually one of the main things that we're also doing. And by the use of this new technology that we have that is called threat block, This is the one that I mentioned that is blocking any domain, any web pages that are reported to have either malware or they are reported to use phishing with them. So in that case, yeah, we are making their lives easier by not trying to make them to be the ones responsible of saying, okay, this might be a malware-ridden web page or maybe not. Well, we have a full list of reported websites that we can just block if they ask for us to block it.
The thing is, if we look at going into Web3 and cybersecurity, we're now introducing my digital identity into the digital space. And that digital identity is unique to myself. And there are tools and techniques that we are using, like you can use an NFT as my identity, for example, to prove who I am. Okay, that's one thing. But then, of course, what is developing now in the metaverse, I have a digital twin of myself, and that's called an avatar.
Yeah.
And I'm now fully immersed in this immersive space, in an augmented reality or virtual reality space, fully digitized, myself as an avatar. Okay. How do I ensure that my digital identity is mine? Or how do I make sure that that person I'm interacting with is who they say they are? How does NordLayer doing anything in terms of that digital identity? Confirmation of people doing a peer-to-peer transaction?
Well, directly into the metaverse on the Web3, we are still in research and development phase of that. But for example, when trying to connect, for example, to a server through NordLayer, we have different ways of knowing who is trying to connect. For example, we have biometrics. You can't connect into a specific production server or finance servers if you're not using, for example, face app, or if you're not using your fingerprint or something related to that. And for example, also by the use of two-factor authentication on top of biometrics, you can always know that the one that is trying to be connecting into your server is who he is, who he is saying he is or she is. So that's one of the main things that we are doing in order to ensure that only the people that have to be connected into this can connect.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. At least you're thinking ahead of what's going to be happening in. I mean, we're in very early days of what we call the metaverse. The issues to do with your own identity and not somebody stealing your avatar or stealing you. Yeah. Number one, or stealing your data in terms of what you're doing, or pretend, with the whole idea of what is called digital twins is a whole new experience, with a digital twin of yourself, digital twin of a building, digital twin of a product. The authentication and the provenance is very, very important. So there's a layer of that security that says, okay, this communication is a secure communication, secure transfer of value, so transfer of data. Yeah. At the end of the day, it still could be a false product or some form of scam on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, as we were,
it's our responsibility as individuals, but still, you can't solve that problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as we were discussing before, the metaverse is like a alternate world that to us. So in the real world, you can just go to a store and buy what you think they are brand clothes, and then you get home and it turns out it was fake. It will also happen in the metaverse. So yeah, just as we are aware of those type of things on the real world, we need to be aware of those types of things on the metaverse, on the cyber world.
This is very, very interesting. Thank you. I just want to sort of close in terms of, because we spent some time talking together. If with all your research and development that you're doing, can you tell me if you had to sort of think 5 years and then 10 years ahead, give us a little idea of what you think the world's going to look like in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, particularly with the development of the metaverse?
Well, I truly believe that more and more countries are going to start passing legislation to adopt these type of technologies. We started with El Salvador, maybe Japan in a couple of years, but most probably European Union are going to start talking about this in the next few years. The United States is a little bit more close to this regard, but I'm sure that at some point they're going to be like, you know what, everyone else is doing it, we need to do it too. So in the next 5 years, I think that we are going to start seeing very, very expanded adoption of this type of technologies. And in cases, for example, where we were living 2 years ago with the COVID-19 pandemic, then you can start interacting with, for example, students in the metaverse. Okay, you can't come to the school, but put your VR glasses, let's have a class right now. You go to the online, to this specific classroom, and then you can start having classes that way. Yeah, and I think in 5 years, we're going to be starting to see the first few pioneers on this type of technologies. And in 10 years, of course, this is going to be mainstream for sure.
When you say mainstream, it then requires that everybody has this new device, which is the fully immersive Oculus goggles, which is the virtual reality world. Do you believe that there's an interim phase, which is what are called augmented reality?
Yeah,
which would be the mainstream?
Well, actually, right now, anyone that has a relative modern phone can use augmented reality. So we already have that right now. So it's going to be a matter of a couple of years, maybe, that people are going to start using that in a more mainstream. I will say that it's already kind of mainstream. You can just go to the streets, you take out your phone and scan a QR code, and you will see something pop out in real life. So it's already here, I will say, that phase.
So it's a different way of presenting information, opportunities, and experiences to individuals via the augmented experience via the device.
Yeah, definitely.
Which has its own challenges for you. You just turn around and said, okay, you can scan a QR code on a lamppost, for example, or but that's a challenge. It's an IoT challenge.
But then again, you scan it and it could be a malicious code. Yes. So it's always a pros and cons.
So you need to find that layer of trust.
Yeah.
In that, so we talk about the lamppost providing data on the health of a city or the of pollution or whatever.
The next bus or something.
Yeah, but itself has to have its own secure identity, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because you need to know that the lamppost is who it is. He is saying. So.
Yes, this is very, very interesting. Carlos, this has been a fantastic 50 minutes that I spent talking to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I've learned a lot, and I'm quite sure our audiences have learned a significant amount from what you've been talking about today. I would like if people want to interact with you, obviously we're going to put your bio up on the interview, but can you just give us quickly the way in which people can get in touch with NordLayer and also your social media connections, so that at least they can start DMing you or interacting with you? Yeah,
sure. I mean, anyone can ping me on LinkedIn. It's just as Carlos Salas. And for NordLayer, we have nordlayer.com. And in LinkedIn, we also have our NordLayer and NordSecurity, which is the umbrella company that all our products are. They also have very good and very interesting topics that I'm sure that it's going to be very interesting for our listeners.
Thank you very much indeed. So I would like to thank the audience for their time to hear and learn about cybersecurity and the metaverse with Salas of NordLayer. I'm Hilton Supra from citiesabc, and where we are building cities and providing people and organizations and creators with interesting token economics models and offer a social impact and ESG and society 5.0 immersive digital tools within our platform, so that basically we can develop and experience products in the real world in a digital way and in a virtual way. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and goodbye.